In my previous video about automated page turning, I used the cursor ticking down in the bottom right to indicate how long it is until the page turns. But this doesn't suit every situation. For example, it might not have a good enough visual contrast against the reading material. And in Comixology's guided view mode, whenever the cursor is moving near the bottom of the screen, it brings up this pop-up menu at the bottom, which becomes annoying and gets in the way of text. Furthermore, not everyone will be comfortable visually tracking the cursor in the bottom right while they're trying to read everything else on the page. For example, if they need their screen to remain static whenever they're reading, or if they want the freedom to move the mouse while reading. Whatever the case, I thought it was worth looking for an alternative notification. I looked at audio notification, and the various ways that AutoHotKey can produce sounds, which I demonstrated in an earlier video. One big advantage of using audio notifications is that they will work regardless of the size, shape, or position of your window. You don't need to worry whether the cursor is moving down to hit the bottom of your window or the bottom of your screen, and you don't need to do any careful measuring for the mouse move command. This makes it much more multi-purpose, assuming that audio notification works for you in your environment. Given that each page turns on a fixed interval, I thought of two general methods of notification style. A simple warning shortly before the page turns, and a sequence of indicators of how far you are through the current loop. For the simple warning, I figured that 10 seconds notice would be enough, with the option to change it if necessary. Modifying the previous code is simple enough. Removing the bits about cursor movement, and duplicating the loop so that it has two phases, running before and after the notification. Having shuffled the values in the loops around, each phase can then be set to my preferred number of seconds, 30 before, 10 after. For the sound activated in between, while system sounds are available, I thought it would be better to have a calming noise that wouldn't get boring upon repetition, and so I used the wave crashing sound I made for my AutoHotKey sounds video. The resulting script has all the same options for terminating the loop, ending a page early, and so on. Here is some example reading, in which I've set the loop time to be quite small, and left in the previous cursor movement, so that you can see the timing. Page up. Page down. This code without the cursor movement will be in the description, and code with cursor movement even further down. For the sequence of indicators of how far you are through the current loop, I thought to do it in fifths, with a different sound between each pair. Ideally these would be nice smooth sounds, but to save time I'm going to use the sound beep function to play the frequencies for the musical notes middle C, then E, then G, then one octave above middle C. Now because I haven't been able to get variables working in AutoHotKey, the only way I knew how to do this was to split the loop into 5. A big downside of this is that every time I wanted to change the loop time, I'd have to change this value 5 times within the code. I solved this by rearranging things. In this case, it's still having all the key checks done 5 times, and each of the sound beeps are done in between. But each of these, instead of having a sleep 20 function, goes up here saying sleep 35, and the number here is 200. What I've done is change the multiplication split across the 5 loops, such that this is the number of seconds for each loop. Or at least it should be in theory. Unfortunately, because it's being called so many times within each loop, in fact being activated 1,000 times per page turn, it won't actually do loop times below 17 seconds. But when you do put a number of 20 or larger in here, it does actually do roughly that number of seconds. I agree it's still messy code, but it's messy code that works, and that's better than simple code which doesn't. I'm making it have a loop time of 20 seconds for the remainder of the video. Because the notes I've chosen are harmonic and intermittent, they don't irritate that much upon repetition, although they are a little sharp. I could have done better with smoother notes made in .wav files, for example frequency shifting some white noise into a harmonic sequence. But the structure and concept is clear here. Page down. This code is also in the description, although I haven't made one that involves moving the cursor because the maths just doesn't work. With both methods, it may be worth wearing earphones so that the notifications are heard discreetly. Page up. Space.